Hey everybody, welcome to Omnis Technologies. I'm Ryan. I'm here with our IT technician, Hunter Ford. How you doing, Hunter?
I'm good.
Good. So today we're going to cover some email topics. We're going to compare Gmail and Outlook and tell you why it should be time to phase out a private or locally hosted email server. So Hunter, what can you tell us about the benefits to using a third-party email over having the privately installed email servers?
So just in the past few years, we've seen a large amount of companies start to move away from locally hosted email servers for a number of reasons. One, well, when a network is attacked, the really they're trying to get to the server and just lock down that and either steal that information or encrypt it and try to ransom it back to you. What's nice about having a third party like Google with Gmail or Microsoft with Outlook and using their cloud based, web based email solutions is that you don't have to, they take care of the security. And even if someone maliciously gains access to, let's say, your Outlook settings or like your Outlook admin account for your uh, Outlook email for your company, you can get a hold of Microsoft. They can basically terminate access to that account with how that person got in. They do all of this just for basically the fee of you using them as an email provider. They they take a lot of the hassle out. Local server solutions, they're honestly a pain. They uh, very complicated to set up, to access off site. Like you have to, it's just such a myriad of settings to go through when you could just use, you know, Outlook through Office 365, or you could use Gmail through Google Apps.
Let's get into um, what goes into making that choice. So I think first and foremost, it's really about what you already may be using. So obviously, if you're using Google, go with Gmail. Same with Microsoft and Outlook. We don't think there's any super big differences as far as if you switch to one or the other
It's,
just based on email. But yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
just through a lot of people have grown up using Gmail or Outlook. So, and fundamentally, these two email services have stayed largely the same. Just features have been added, and the look of them has just been updated over time. Uh, so, if you have a long history of using Outlook with work, you're likely going to want to stick with Outlook if you're the one making the decision to go with one or the other. Uh, and then it just depends on the needs and the software that your company uses. Here with Protocol 80 and Omnis, we actually use both. Omnis uses Office while Protocol 80 uses Google Apps,
Yep.
and that's just due to some of those just small differences in the needs of each part of the company. So with a lot of the Protocol 80 stuff, Google Apps integrates better than, let's say, Outlook would. While Gmail integrates better than Outlook would.
Sure. So we do a lot of we're constantly messaging back um, Google Doc files, slides, things that we're all collaborating on, or you guys is much more system based.
hmm
You're in the Microsoft, working the back end with the servers and um,
With
the
yeah,
routing
just
connections.
yeah, and I would say Outlook, like Microsoft's probably it's going to be more familiar to people who work with tech, especially since Windows is such a is the prevalent operating system. Uh, but for a company that doesn't have a large amount of tech needs, where most of their operations can be done fully through a browser, Gmail is a good solution. Whereas with Outlook, you can have it locally installed, and that's that's another key difference. Where most of Gmail is not an installed application, or Outlook is both a web-based application and you can have an application installed on your computer or your phone. Both do have mobile apps, uh, but there is no Gmail application for Windows or Mac or Linux or anything like that.
Sure. And that really just comes down to personal preference and familiarity too, whether you would prefer getting on the local app or using it on the browser.
Yep.
And so how do they compare security and encryption wise?
So with Gmail, there are a few options, I guess, for by default, an email will be sent encrypted, but the caveat to that is it depends on who you're sending it to. So let's say you're sending it to a client that you work with normally and they also have Gmail. It's going to be sent with more than likely the highest level of encryption possible through Gmail. Uh, but let's say someone has a locally hosted email server. There's a chance that they don't have proper encryption set up, and that affects the level of encryption you can send that email with to them specifically.
Right.
So if you send an email to multiple recipients, that email's encryption level will be it's basically whoever has the lowest encryption level in a multi-person email, it'll send at that level so it can be sent to everyone. I know there's options where you can basically send an email where it requires a password to open it. So like authentication basically to gain access to that email. And then with Outlook, there is an option when you go to draft an email to be sent, you can send it specifically encrypted.
But definitely no real security concerns with any of them. It's Google, it's Microsoft, it's pretty hardcore stuff.
Yep, everything is stored on their servers, which for these multi-billion-dollar companies, they have high-level security in place to make sure no one accesses their storage. It's also all encrypted, so even if someone does access it, more than likely they won't be able to do anything with that information, which just helps in the long run of keeping your data safe.
So how do they compare as far as a lot of the tools we use are all about extensions and integrations? So which one works better for people who like to have really custom experiences with those kind of add-ons?
Yep. So both Gmail and Outlook have a slew of extensions and add-ons that work with them. And a lot of companies that make these extensions make them for both. Just from what I've seen, I feel as if Gmail has more widespread extension and integration,
Sure.
whereas Outlook, I would say, has probably a smaller pool, but in that pool, are probably a little bit higher quality connection, like extensions and add-ons. I feel like there's a lot of integration specifically within Microsoft applications with Outlook, whereas Gmail has that to an extent, but I think there's a little bit more, since Outlook can also be an installed application, there's a little bit more that it can do with those add-ons and extensions.
So one thing we want to mention, we've talked to some Gmail users, is some people don't, when the default is you get these 3 tabs that are the primary, the promotions, and the social. And personally, I like to just have my inbox be my inbox. And there are ways, we'll link to a tutorial, but there are ways to turn that off so your inbox is your inbox.
It's basically just Gmail wanting to give you that sort of automatic filtering just from but some people obviously don't like that. I use Outlook. The way I deal with sort of certain types of emails is I categorize emails a certain way, and then if I get, let's say, a spam promotional email, I tag that email address, and it automatically filters all emails from that address to a promotional folder, stuff like that.
So they both have tools for filtering and putting in folders or categories or labels.
Yep, and labels and folders in Gmail and Outlook are they're just a flip side of each other. They're very, very similar. You can configure them in very similar ways. Very useful, very robust. They both have very flexible settings to kind of do what you want.
Yep. So really what you're trying to consider is if you're comfortable using the more old school tech oriented Microsoft and Outlook version, or the more newer, slightly more trendy Gmail style.
Hmm.
As far as security and usability, they all operate relatively the same way.
Yeah, you'll see with specific companies that one or the other will work better, but it's dependent on the software that those companies use and how those pieces of software integrate specifically with email applications.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Make sure you comment or get in touch if you want us to cover anything further. And we'll be back next week with another video. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.